to cover it?
Yes.
Call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. May I have the statement in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act?
In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting of the council was provided by transmitting a copy of the meeting notice to the Madison Eagle and the Morris County Daily Record, posting a copy on the bulletin board at the main entrance of borough offices, and filing a copy in the office of the clerk, all on January 15, 2013. Copies of said notice were made available to members of the general public.
And roll call.
Mayor Conley?
Here.
Mrs. Sukamoto?
Here.
Mr. Catalanello?
Here.
Mr. Landrigan?
Here.
Mrs. Vitale?
Here.
Ms. Bailey?
Here.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Here.
Okay, agenda review. It's our last round of public budget hearings. We'll have Board of Health, Electric Utility Administration, Water Utility Administration, capital budget, and then final budget adjustments. And then, of course, invitation for public comment on any topic. And I just want to, as we open this up, just a second here, let me get to my notes. I want to thank everyone for all the work they put in, all the departments and our council and all volunteers behind the scenes working on this. I also want to thank, from our last round of budget presentations, both Chief DeRosa and Chief Datchison for kind of really presenting in a way that we like to see it, and that is talking about current year or past year accomplishments, current year goals, look to the future, and what the budget implications are. So I use those two as an example to our department heads for today as a guide, so you'll see that hopefully a similar presentation. The other thing with due respect to a Saturday morning and lots of things to be done, I asked the council to, any questions in advance, to send them out, so I appreciate all the work done by the council in getting some questions ahead of time. So you may see fewer questions from the council members, but what you'll see and won't notice is the fact that those questions will be answered during the presentations. I'm sure there'll still be a few, but hopefully this will be a better process. All right, Board of Health.
Good morning. First, I just wanted to say that you were given out in your packets this morning the annual report from the Department of Health, as well as the public health practice standards, which is all of the items that the health department is responsible by state statute to address for not only Madison, but for all our contracting communities. So you should have all of that information. The executive summary really is kind of what I'm going to touch on briefly. Being here for 5 months, it's been an exciting 5 months between Hurricane Sandy, getting settled in, and getting to know the amazing staff that we have here at the department. We are also very excited to mention that we now have, thanks to Dr. Rice passing her health officer's exam, we have 2 health officers now in our department, 2 health educators, 2 registrars, 2 REHSs, as well as 2 public health nurses. So we are very proud of the professionalism in our staff, as well as having 1 doctorate, 3 master's degrees, and varying bachelor's degrees throughout the department. So we're very proud of that. Our current contracts are with Chatham Township, Chatham Borough, and Springfield. We have 2 new contracts, 2 or 3 new contracts pending, which for all intents and purposes, until we hear more from that, I can't really release the information, but we do have some proposals on board. We have expanded our contract this year with Chatham Borough to include our REHS services, which is the sanitarian services. We have our contract with Milburn and Livingston ACOs, which we were able to recognize a $35,000 savings this year for that. We also, with that, have increased our vaccinations, and we gave over 1,600 vaccinations last year, and that does not include the 270 we gave out in 5 days during the little flu panic outbreak in January. So that was really a wonderful job on behalf of our staff. We are also members of the Housing and Safety Committee, and we have the enforcement role. Tamika Trotman and I both sit on that committee for Madison, and for Madison alone. We do not provide housing services for the other contracting towns. We do also provide consultant services, so to speak, through our contract for emergency management. However, the primary emergency management services are with Madison, and that is something that is solely for the Madison residents. We were able to reduce our legal costs this year by over $18,000. And one of our biggest goals is our technology enhancements. We started implementing tablets, and we are moving forward this year to get all of our REHS inspection reports electronic, which will save both time and money for our department. And we are producing data reports on a regular basis moving forward this year electronically. So we really have some exciting things we're looking forward to. And as a health educator, one of my biggest excitements is we're expanding our internship program. I have contacts with UMDNJ where I had mentored other master's level and bachelor's level students in the past, and they have actually reached out to us. We set up a meeting yesterday, or Thursday actually, and we are going to be getting public health interns for the future, which is just critical in enhancing the services we provide and the programming we can provide moving forward. And we are going to be looking for additional grants moving forward this year. That's one of our goals. Both Dr. Rice, Christine Schessler, and myself are accomplished grant writers, so we're looking forward to working together as a team to provide more grants moving forward in the future. And that's our brief overview.
Liaison?
I really don't have much of a comment, except to say that these past 5 months with Lisa has really enhanced the health department. And one of the most important factors is that she has enhanced the services given to our contract towns, which has made an absolute difference. We had a lot of transition in the last couple of years, so stability down there is absolutely great. As far as the Board of Health is concerned, we're moving towards getting more involved with public health and less with management decisions. Lisa will be leading the teams. So we're looking forward to that. You know, we have started to work on possibly working with the Board of Education this year for hand sanitizers, and so we're going to be doing some great things as far as Board of Health working very closely with the health department. I'm very proud to know this group of people. Flo Rice listened last year when we were in transition and went ahead on her own and received her health officer license. And what that's going to do for us basically is if Lisa needs to take a vacation, which I think is going to be no question about it, we will always have a health officer on staff. That health officer will be on staff for all of our contract towns. I think that makes us a lot stronger when we're going out and we're adding that type of criteria. But they're a good, dedicated people, and I look back at the health department, and I look back at where this started. And you had Thursday Morning Club years and years ago say, hey, listen, and these are a group of women who said, you know what, we need to have health services in this town. And they went about to do that, and then, here we are, so many years later. So I'm very pleased and very passionate about the health department and the Board of Health. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob?
Thank you, Mayor. Lisa alluded to it before, which was the service that she provides for emergency management. What I'll tell you is this. During the first Halloween snowstorm, then the second one that the mayor jinxed us with when he said it wouldn't happen again, but we got it again, and then Hurricane Irene. It's not reflected in the numbers here, but I'm gonna get those numbers for everybody once the FEMA submissions are prepared. There is a great value that they provided during those storms. They provided shelters. They manned other shelters. They took care of our residents. FEMA ascribes a value to those, aside from my personal thanks to everybody in the health department for what you did during those events. There is a great value ascribed to those, which does not appear in the bottom line. And what I will tell you is this. A resident from another town came to Madison one day and said to me, you know, I won't mention the town, but they said, thank God you guys have a health department. So thank you, Lisa, and I will get those numbers to everybody so you can see, I guess, the numerical value to the support that they provided during those events. Thank you, Mayor.
Other questions, comments? Jeannie?
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. I suppose my question, couple questions, they're actually, maybe Robert is the better person to answer the question. Robert, I asked you to provide the numbers. Yesterday we had the conversation about the true cost of the Board of Health to the town, because if you look at the numbers here, if you look on page 6 here, their budget is $559,000. That is not the true cost of Madison, because you need to take that number and deduct all the revenues that they're bringing in, all the contracts that they're bringing in. So, Robert, if you can talk a little bit about the actual cost for 2012 and what will be the true cost this year.
As Robert steps up, just a reminder for those that may have not been at a previous one, the way the budget process works for a government entity, you see only expenses right here. You don't see the revenue. So Jeannie's question is related to what is the actual net cost, because those revenues are somewhere else and do not appear in the health department budget.
Yep. Thank you for that. It's very important for residents to realize that the bottom line here is not the true cost.
So step on up to the, thanks, Robert.
Please look to the last page of the health department budget. Do you have that in front of you, Jeannie? Now, I did this on a budget-to-budget comparison, so we have apples and apples. So the budget for 2012 for salary and wages was $472,702. The operating expense budget was $104,200, and you can see the bottom line there for 2012 budget was $576,902. Everyone with me?
Yep.
For 2013, the comparable salary and wage number is $484,679. You can see the operating expenses are down by $30,000 to $74,900 for a total of $559,579. The contract revenue for 12 and 13, the budget was $372,549, which is all collected, and the budget for 2013 is $286,000 for the 3 participating municipalities. The supplemental revenue items for 12 and 13 respectively, $95,000 and $108,000. And for those members in our audience, the supplemental revenues consist of revenues from vital statistics, business licensing, nursing services, Medicare payments, animal licensing, and food handler training, which Lisa is prepared to discuss them if that's necessary. So when you take into account those revenue items, the 2012 net cost to the taxpayers is $109,000. And for 13, $164,000. That's an increase of $55,000, which is due to the loss of the contracts from Morris Plains, Victory Gardens, and Butler, offset by the contract from Springfield.
Thank you, Robert. Can you tell us where in all your budget documents you reflect all the revenue
Yeah, I can jump in on that, Robert. If
Sure.
you turn to the budget exhibit that you have on page 22 of the big budget document, you'll see budget and actual comparison of municipal sources of revenue, and on there you'll see health contracts. So that was part of the information that you had asked for, Jeannie, in terms of additional revenue. And you'll see the budgeted $340,000 for health contracts, and then the actual, and the reason the actual is higher is because there was contract fees that were due in 2011 that didn't get paid until 2012, so that's why there's $412,000 there. So that's where it's reflected in a more detailed way. And then if you take the, if you look at the bottom of the 2012 budget number, you'll see $4,238,000 on page 22. And if you flip to the last page, page 24, you'll see municipal sources of revenue, $4,238,000. So in this summary budget that we have here, the health department contracts are falling in under the municipal sources, right there.
Page is that again?
This is 24, this is the last
24,
page
okay,
of the handout.
For page 22, those were the numbers for 2012. Now, we also, Robert sent home a schedule for 2013 for the itemized revenue sources. For that item, the 2013 budget didn't reflect the contracted amount. And also, what about the supplemental revenue? Is that reflected anywhere in the budget, Robert?
Parts of it are. Parts of it are reflected in the Borough Clerk. But historically, we have not reflected the Medicare payments. When it comes in, it goes right to surplus immediately. The Medicare payments are subject to a lot of fluctuation, so we have not reflected them. We have not
So
reflected
those
that
are
yet.
not, but the contracted amount, we try to reflect that. But you did
Yes,
not?
yeah, now I'm reflecting $260,000. Once again, the contracts are for 286.
Right.
I am just building in some type of buffer if some of the municipalities submit their fourth quarter payments late, which on occasion has occurred.
We're hoping that it doesn't.
Okay. Did that happen last year?
And the excess will go right to surplus.
Understand. Did that happen in 2012?
Actually, it did not.
It did not?
No.
2011.
Pardon me?
Okay.
2011.
The 2011 payments were late, and they're reflected in 12.
Okay. But the 108 here, the excess revenue, they're not reflected here.
Not all of it. That
Okay.
is correct.
Okay.
Can I just,
Yeah, the one.
just, one of those figures, Jean, is, Lisa has just started food handler courses that we've never had before. So, and we did relatively well with just 51 people, and there's about 2 or 3 of them that are coming up. The Medicare payments were never reflected. We asked that as a line item so that we can keep track of that amount of
That'd be
money.
great,
Yeah, it makes sense. And we did have an increase in all of our fees this year. That, we passed that resolution in December, so that's going to help as well. Some of the technology that is very easy now with the animal licensing and whatever, we're able to get money quicker. So whatever happened in 2011 and the money was reflected in 2012, I personally hope that we don't see that, because then it's not a true number for us to work with for next year again. So we're hoping to get that.
That's
all
great. That's why I
adjusted.
asked the question.
Yeah.
The health department worked real hard to bring in the additional revenue. I want to make sure that the residents and all of us really understand that those numbers are reflected somewhere.
And if I might also add, the other thing that's not reflected in our budget is the court fines. That is reflected in the court budget. So any summonses that are issued, any court fines that are collected, I believe last year we collected through our fine system for the court approximately between $8,000 and $10,000. But that's not reflected in here because we don't want to double show the numbers. We want it to be accurate, and that goes strictly through the courts.
Great, thank you.
And we have ongoing discussions with other municipalities as far as hopefully
Yeah,
bringing?
we currently have proposals out to 3, and we're working real hard, doing the schmoozing that we have to and whatever. But I think the staff kind of speaks for itself, and now with the help of Flo having a health license too, we're hoping that just brings us over. But we're real close, and we continue to talk to people on a consistent basis. So, very optimistic this year.
Ben?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just want to make sure that as we go through where things are being booked, that the bottom line is clear. And so if you would, could you just confirm, if I look at the budget for the Health Department for 2013, we're talking $559,000. If I look at the anticipated revenue sources, we're a shade under 400. Can I therefore conclude that for the residents of Madison, the net cost of having a health department is $160,000,
Yes.
approximately? So that would mean, given we have just a shade under 16,000 residents, we're talking $10 to $11 a person. Okay, that's great, because last year when I was trying to get a handle on what health departments were all about and how much they cost, towns of our size seem to be somewhere in the mid-teens. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I
Yes.
think that was the number statewide. So we're
Yes.
talking about not only great service, but a very significant reduction in the cost relative to most of the towns that we look at as comparable.
Correct.
Can I
Thank
make- Yeah, can I also make?
Rob and then
Rob has
Carmella.
a-
Thank you so much. I think you guys are doing a wonderful job, and I'm very confident that with your leadership, we'll be able to further reduce the cost of health in Madison. But just so I understand correctly, Robert, in the budget, the $108,500 from supplemental revenue is not reflected in the municipal revenue. And historically, we kept Medicare payments out of $22,000, I understand. And we're also underreporting revenue by $26,000 from the contracts that we have already signed.
That is correct.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And if I can be of any help in closing these contracts, I doubt it, but if I can, please let me know.
Thank you.
All hands on deck for that, yes. Thank you. Carmella?
Yeah, I just want to make one other comment. I think that we kind of forget. One of the great services that we have that a lot of municipalities really don't ask us for, and they're very foolish, is we have a health educator who runs our MASA program. And Christine really extends that into Rose City Steppers, a balance program. What else, Christine, is there?
Healthy
Matter of
Bones.
Balance,
Healthy
Healthy Bones. There are a lot of programs that are out there that are very, very well attended. And we're lucky that we have a health educator, and we try and encourage our contract towns to utilize this service. And Christine does all of this on a part-time basis, so.
Correct.
You know, in 23 hours, she accomplishes a lot. And I think that's very important for the residents of Madison, to have that extra service. Thank you. And I'm gonna.
Any other comments? As I look on the audience, I just want to reinforce that obviously the mayor and council are here because we're getting the big bucks for Saturday morning, but the dedication of our health department, we have a great showing. So why don't you, a quick little wave from everyone from the health. Thank you for coming in to support Lisa. One thing I neglected to note in the agenda review, consistent with previous budget hearings, is we'll give an opportunity in between each section for the public to ask questions related to that particular budget. So is anyone in the audience wishing to ask a question related to the Board of Health budget or the dog regulations budget? If so, please step to the lectern, state your name, address, and ask your questions. Seeing none, we will move on. Thank you very much, Lisa.
Thank you. I just wanted also, one other thing that I did not mention is we just got approval the other day to be a vaccine for adults provider, which means we will now be able to get very costly vaccines for free from the state of New Jersey, which includes the shingles vaccine, the meningitis vaccine, and couple others. So I also wanted to throw that free plug in there because it'll make it much more affordable for the underinsured and uninsured. Thank you.
Well, my little scar. And for those of the shingles vaccine with my little scar in the middle of the forehead, I would encourage those to take advantage of that when you get to the proper age. So.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, moving on to electric utility administration.
Thinking about getting one.
Mayor, with your permission, I'm going to discuss both the water and electric utility administration budgets simultaneously.
Sounds good.
I don't think there'd be any questions. Yeah.
Both of these budgets are responsible for providing the first line of customer service support for our water and electric utility customers. We are responsible for producing and mailing approximately 74,000 electric bills annually and approximately 24,000 water utility bills, which are sent on a quarterly basis, and the electric bills on a monthly basis, as you know. We're also responsible for the collection of the receipts, and a primary duty is to follow up on delinquencies. We do have delinquencies, but we do not have a large delinquency problem. There are always customers that have difficulties with their personal life, with divorce, with sickness, job losses, so these delinquencies will occur. So we do have them, but it is not a problem. I'd like you to remove pages 2, 3, and 4, and 5 from the presentation document. I want to address those. 2, 3, 4, and 5. From what was emailed to you yesterday, it's not in your budget book. It was from the email.
Or it's in the back
section.
back
Yeah.
section of.
Yeah.
What we got today?
Yep.
Yes. 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Robert, can you be more specific? Page 2 is Board of Health.
There's a section, there's a title page.
Oh, I'm
that
sorry.
will say utilities.
Utilities. Sorry.
About halfway through the packet, Jeannie, after all of the Edmunds budget documents is the presentation. Keep going.
So you come, the packets that we had in our places right here, you come to this page, and then after this page, you'll see the numbered pages.
There you go.
You mean after the utility label, Robert?
Right.
Okay.
Correct. Yep.
The one that I got wasn't apparently the one that you have.
So we're now all are on the same page.
This is it. Yeah, okay, thank you.
We all good? All right, from a financial perspective, you can see in 2012, the electric utility, the collections were $22,679,000. That's 1.5% above last year, even though the kilowatt hours that we billed were slightly down. That was an increase of $328,000. I was quite pleased with those results. They were still 1.5% down, even though we experienced a total loss of billings of, depending upon where the customers were located, anywhere from 3 or 4 days, Michael? 8 to 10. So we still increased the cash collections by 1.47%, even though we lost, how many days again? 8 to 10. Okay, all right. Okay.
So Robert, we talked about this yesterday. Just want to say that it looks like that if we didn't have those the outages, So we're looking to generate another 250, right? So we lost, it's safe to say that we lost $250,000 because of the outages. Right.
Yeah.
61,000.
It's difficult to quantify, but bottom line is yes, that's uncaptured revenue that will never be realized again. Please look at the schedule of electric utility surplus balance.
Page 4.
This, to me, sends a very strong message. You can see the beginning of the year surplus balances are stabilizing and going from 4.4 million in 09 to down to 2.7 in 10, back up to 4.8 in 11, 4.7 in 12, and 5.4 million in 13. After the transfers were made, from 2010, the net total of the surplus balances went from 62,000 to $1.5 million to 1.2 to 1.7, and as you can see, the surplus balances from 2009 to 2012 also have dramatically stabilized from 4.8 to 4.7 to 5.4 million. And as we proceed through 13 and 14, and when we arrive in 2015, we will have one full year of purchase power contracts at a extremely diminished cost. What we buy for the kilowatt hours will be substantially lower in the full year 15 versus 13, full year 13 from Constellation. And that will, depending upon how council wants to proceed, that will flow immediately to surplus, immediately. And let's look at the water utility. As most of you know, we historically have been immensely lower than all of the water utilities and all of the municipal water utilities throughout Morris County. We've documented that, we've proved that. I'll be sending out the water rate comparisons. The water utility presents an interesting challenge. I am directed to do the following. We must collect the revenues in order to fully fund the water main replacement program, fully fund the automated meter reading program, deliver $450,000 of surplus this year. So on a revenue collection of 2.6 million, operating the electric utility, the water utility, and making all those capital transfers, as well as delivering $450,000 in surplus to the municipal budget has been a challenge, and a lot of that we did through water rate increases, although we're still below neighboring municipal water utility rate systems. 2012 was a very unusual year. We did not take any rate increases, yet the cash collections are almost 15% above the prior year, which is an incredible surprise to me. I don't think we had unusual weather like we had in 2010, but I'm pleased that all the utility users are using extremely large amounts of water. I cannot explain these numbers, Rob. I never would have anticipated a 15% increase, and I'm sure we're not going to see that in 13.
Everybody's more active, they're taking more showers.
That's fine.
Yeah, certainly, just in case you're not looking at in the audience, what jumps out is January, February, March are up 20 to 30%, and they're not going to be weather-related months with water. But so I guess we're all taking more showers.
Have we replaced any of the meters yet? Did we replace none of them, either on the commercial or?
Not yet. And in regard to this, some of the cash collections are cash collections. The bill may have been the prior year, and as Robert talked about with the delinquencies, Ray and I meet monthly with Robert and with Donna over from utility billing, and we work through all the accounts, and we make sure that we're being appropriately aggressive in terms of collecting outstanding bills. So there's been a reduction in the amount of delinquencies that we have, which can certainly help increase cash without having any additional sale.
Would we make a push year end to do that, which then would lead to a January, February, March flip? Okay. Rob?
May I just ask, on the water surplus,
I'm going to address that next.
and just the question I have, maybe you can address it, is of that $1.441 million, is the $600,000 that we have, or the $400,000 that we have collected over the past 2 years towards our goal of raising $1 million for the meter replacement, is that included in that number?
No.
It's not
No,
included?
that's excluded. That's excluded.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's on the water utility balance sheet
Great.
as a separate reserve.
Fantastic.
And that is net of that number. Let's address the surplus schedule, please. Very simply, I think you can see the surplus is going in a extraordinarily positive direction. Balance at year end, 776, a million, 1.1 million, and 1.4 million. And as you can see, the second line from the top, less utilized in the municipal budget, 300 grand we transferred to the municipal budget, 358, 350, 350, and 450. The reason I'm comfortable with increasing from 350 to 450, you can see what we generated in 2010, 11, and 12. 2 years is not a trend. 3 years to myself, professionally speaking, is a trend. And I'm comfortable with the transfer of 450. So we generated 709, 462, and 652 in those successive years. And that's while putting away $200,000 in 11 and 12 for the automated metering reserve. And once again, Rob, that is in a separate liability account.
That's great.
Just 1 second, Robert.
And I just want to jump in and say that obviously the surplus balances and the operations of both utilities are going exceptionally well. Obviously, they'll be in better situation when the new electric procurement contracts are in place. As such, there are absolutely no contemplation for us to consider any rate increases or for us to ask council for any rate increases in any way whatsoever. So just want to make that clear.
Thank you.
Let's go to the budget numbers. Now, in both the water and electric budgets, they're standalone budgets. I can't transfer, I cannot make any transfers from a municipal budget into the water or electric, or from the water back to the municipal, or the water to the electric, or the electric to the water, or the electric to municipal. So I'm ultra conservative with the numbers that I'm budgeting. And historically, we'll underspend them. However, in the case where we have emergencies like we have with the past 2 hurricanes, we have been extremely fortunate where we had the financial capacity to absorb the appropriations in the electric utility and somewhat in the water utility. If either of the hurricanes took place in the year 2010, where we had the extraordinary heat wave, we would not have had the capacity to fund Hurricane Irene or Hurricane Sandy out of the electric utility. And we would have been staring right in the face of a special emergency appropriation, which between myself and Jim and Ray, I have an unwritten policy to fund emergency appropriations through these utilities, keep it out of the tax rate, and completely avoid special emergency appropriations. That's basically the mandate that I have been given.
And that just is good management because you can't predict an emergency, and that would cause fluctuations and the pressures of the tax rate if you relied on taxes to cover the emergency. So we have a system, unlike many towns, to be able to cover it. And so whether it's a single event like a hurricane or a very hot summer where we end up having to buy more power than we anticipated, we've got processes in place to cover that. And Jim?
We're very fortunate to have the utility, to have the ability to do this. These events are obviously impact the utility more than anything else. I mean, the electricity was out for how many days during Sandy, so it's appropriate to fund it through that. One of the challenges with the utility is, and with the budget in general, I think it's important for everybody to understand, my budget at home is totally different than this type of budget. This is a spending plan. When we put numbers down on this paper and determine that that's the number, that's all we can spend. That's what Robert was talking about. You can't transfer money from one account to another, from the utility, from the water to the electric to the operating. It's a set spending amount. So at the last budget hearing we talked about, I know council understands that we have to book a certain amount of expense, appropriation, expecting to have to spend that. For example, the salt and the brine. We talked about how last year DPW didn't use as much, but we have to book it because if we have a bad year, we have to do that. Same situation with this budget here. You see a tremendously large line item, wholesale purchase of power. We really don't know how much energy we're going to sell this year because we don't know if it's going to be 50 days of 90-degree weather or no days of 90-degree weather. So that's a higher budgeted amount. But in talking at a subcommittee meeting on the electric utility, we've determined that we think it's appropriate to create a contingency account within this budget and to reduce the wholesale electric power number and increase and create a contingency number. That way it's a little cleaner to have a contingency number where that, where that could occur. That contingency could be a storm-related issue, or it could be, wow, we sold a lot more electricity than we needed, and we can use that contingency account to purchase more wholesale electric power.
Thank you, Jim. We certainly discussed that the other day, and thank you for covering that now. I totally agree. For emergency purposes, this is the place to go. Now, however, in our meeting, we also talked about, we also use the utility account for other purpose where we don't already have an account established. I think in the past year, for example, all the GVR expense, they are coming out of the utility account. And also, if we incur any extra legal fee, also, those type of expenses are coming out of utility account. For emergency purpose, I totally agree, but for the other purpose, such as legal, such as GVR, and other type of activities, I think we should look into creating their separate accounts just for better accounting purpose and also for better accountability and transparency. If you would do that, I think that would be a good idea.
That would be fine.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
And just so people, the audience understands and those viewing at home, while Jeannie just mentioned costs related to the redevelopment to GVR, that is a temporary expense to the borough. It is going to come out of the sale of the property, so we are not putting money out that won't get reimbursed.
Yep, thank you for that explanation. So it's like a placeholder, but we're expecting that we need to spend certain amount of dollars. I think it would be nice to have you separately. That way, it's better accounting.
Yes, I do agree with that,
And for the ease of reimbursement later on, also.
let's look at page.
Can I just ask a question? How would you do that?
Pardon me?
How would you implement what Jeannie just said?
We're going to have to collect it. I would recommend we collect it all in legal fees. And if we have to do budget transfers in there to accommodate it, we will.
In effect, what you're doing now is you have a place from which you can borrow money within the budget.
Well, I'm not borrowing money. We're spending it, right?
Well, I know, but you're in a sense forwarding the money before you get it in, right? We can go over this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some might be.
I'm just not sure how you'd implement.
Yeah, some might be replenished, some may not be replenished.
Right.
So that's
Understood.
Okay.
So
So we'll come up with so that's certainly a to-do list that we'll.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, Jeannie, I understand what you want. You want us to, we're going to find a home for all of those legal expenses. in one place as opposed to dispersed in several other. And that's what we'll do,
Okay.
which is exactly what we did with Irene and Sandy hurricane expenses. In order to track them, and in order for Bob to have a good handle on the FEMA, we collected it in one place, and so there was full disclosure there. Let's go to page 2 of the water utility budget. The department totals $572,000 for 2012 versus $586 for 2013. On a net basis, there is very little change from the prior year. If we do not spend those appropriations, they're available for, if we do have if we do have emergencies that cannot be accommodated within the municipal budget, we could utilize them. If not, they will go into appropriation reserves, and they will be canceled. They will be carried forward through the year and be canceled and go directly to surplus. Any questions on any of the accounts?
Yeah, a couple of things I want to mention here, which we discussed in our committee meeting, and I thought it's good to share. One of the things is to improve payment efficiency and also to reduce the workload for the billing department. We talked about that we need to encourage residents to use online payment through RoseNet. Now, one of the things I think all the committee members agree is that one way of encouraging the residents to use that is by not charging the $1 processing fee. And I'm sure that Mr. Burnett and Robert will look into how they implement that. And I think we all agree that that will be a good thing to do. Also, another point is to better reflect Mr. Burnett's work and responsibility. We were going to look into charging some of his time to the utility accounts because a good part of his responsibility is working with the electric and water utility.
To address your first point, yes, you're correct. We need to look for, and we're going to continue to look for efficiencies, look for a possible way to waive that $1 charge. That $1 charge is a charge that comes to us from the processor. It's actually attached by the processor. It's not attached by us. So we're going to work with that company to see if there's a way to do it because, you know, we appreciate people paying online. It is efficient. It makes things a little easier. And then, oh, what's this $1 charge? So we're going to work on that. In regard to the decision by council to have a portion of my salary appropriated in utilities. It's not inappropriate. It's done for other staff. It won't have any change in the impact of the budget whatsoever. It's purely just an administrative decision because if you were to, say, take a portion of my salary and put it in the electric utility, then what you would need to do on page 24 is reduce the amount of electric surplus that we're generating, but then reduce the amount of expense on this side. So it would be a pure wash. There's no financial benefit to the town, but it's just
better reflect what you do.
The council thinks it's appropriate to reflect the workload. Doesn't matter to me. Right, yep.
As long as the check doesn't change.
I didn't say that. As long as I get my money on Friday.
Move on.
Yep.
The electric utility, very, very similar to the water. Once again, can't transfer in, can't transfer out. So the appropriations that I budget there are generous to make certain that I have the funds. And once again, we've been fortunate that we could fund all the hurricane expenses through the electric utility. As I mentioned, if that were to have occurred in 2010, that would have not been the case because we spent the entire budget plus some on purchase power in the electric utility purchase power during 2010. The wholesale purchase power budget for 2012 was an even $16 million. We transferred $955,000 out to professional services to fund the hurricane, as well as to fund expenses in Mr. Piano's budget. I think that's $125,000. Michael, correct? So we're actually, we're going to take the purchase power budget from 16 million down to 15.8, even though we're going to incur approximately $600,000 in additional capacity costs that are pass-throughs that we have no control over.
And if you want to learn more about those pass-through charges, visit the electric utility page on RoseNet. There's a detailed explanation of how peak charges work. Basically, you take 365 days, you take a factor that is attributed to Madison based on last year's 5 hottest days. Unfortunately, last year we had a fair amount of hot days. The year before, we didn't have as many 90, 95-degree days, so our factor is a little higher, and then you multiply that by an RPM rate. That's a rate issued by the PJM grid, and that is an auction-based rate that they calculate that is to be reimbursed to those plants that are available for peak operations, the plants that they turn on the 5 to 10 to 15 hot days of the year. That RPM rate fluctuates on a yearly basis, and it's going up significantly this year, so we have to take that into account in our the amount that's appropriate in the wholesale power.
So just for the sake of simplicity, so that I understand this well, so if in fact we use the exact same amount of power, which I know won't happen, but again, for simplicity, the actual number would go from 14.96 to approximately 15.56 because of that new transfer.
Yeah, 600 might be a high estimate. It's not the easiest number to wrap your arms around. So, but we're looking at, we think we're being conservative, as we always need to be, with assuming that's going to be a $500,000 increase in the peak charge.
600,000.
Right.
And that the rates, our capacity rates for January, February, March, April, and May are the same as they were in 2012. They will ratchet up June 1st, 2013. And continue that way to May 31st, 2014, which gloriously is the end of that Constellation contract.
So the increased charges only take into account for 6 months of the year?
7 months.
7 months of the year?
It goes, instead of going calendar year, it goes from May to May.
So we're thinking that the 7 months charge would be $600,000. That's our
Could
budget.
be. Well, and it's compared to last year's calendar year, where there was
Right,
went from here to here. This year it's going to go from here to here. So there's a change in the fee that we paid in January, February, March, and April for peak will be higher because of the rate from 2011 to 2012 and from 2012 to 2013. Our September, October, November, December, the second half of the year will be higher. I'm not doing a good job explaining it. I apologize.
No.
Won't be on the test. Jeannie?
Yeah. Robert, can you go back to the 2 surplus schedule for both electric and water? You talked about earlier that in 2012, we generated 4.2 million.
Yes.
Looking at the past 2 months and knowing what we just talked about, what would be your estimate for the revenue that we can generate this year? Is it?
You mean the surplus?
Yes, I mean the surplus, yes. Are you comfortable that we will be able to generate at least 4.2?
No,
Or
I
close
don't, I
to?
don't, no, I don't believe that is going to occur. The 4.2 million is essentially 2 components. It's the excess of the revenues collected above the revenue budget in round numbers of 3.5 million, 3.4 million, and the cancellation of prior year appropriation reserves of 800,000. We don't have the 800,000 to cancel during 2013 because we expended it on the storm. So it won't be there to cancel. So I believe we have $450,000 that we will be able to cancel. So that's a difference of about $300,000.
So we'll be able to generate around 4 million.
Probably closer to.
I hope so,
Close to-
yes, yeah.
I mean,
Close to
our,
4 million,
our
right?
goal is always to, if you look at the second line, this is page 4 in the back section, if everyone's looking, it's less utilizing municipal budget. Our goal to be sustainable is to have a surplus generated that's at least equal to, if not better than that
Better, right.
amount. So 3.7 is a number that we feel comfortable with to be utilized in the budget, and it's a number we feel comfortable with that we believe will be generated by the utilities.
Well, I think, Robert, what you're saying is the money that we spent, that $1 million that we took out from utility for the storm, it's not money totally lost. It's just that when we retrieve the money from FEMA, that it's not going to go back to the electric surplus. It's going to go elsewhere. So it's not a total loss. So you, correct?
That's all correct?
Right.
Yes.
I think that's what you're saying. That's why we don't have that money to cancel. But we're getting that reimbursement into some other
Yeah,
account.
the FEMA money will flow directly to our municipal account, and it'll be recorded as miscellaneous revenue not anticipated, goes right to surplus, which is consistent with the accounting treatment that we did for Hurricane Irene,
Okay.
which our auditor is comfortable with.
So now, the next question is for water utility surplus. Are you comfortable with that we'll be able to generate close to 652, especially water usage? Has been increasing.
Well, 15 minutes ago, I told you, I can't explain how the cash collections were up 15%. I'm delighted, each month that we continued throughout the year, I was delighted. As a matter of fact, go to the water cash receipts page, please. Go refer to that again. Look at the month of December. 240,000 versus 191,000. Once again, I can't explain how.
But Robert, these are delayed by 3 months, right? I think that's what Jim was saying. We only collect every 3 months, so.
No,
it's
we
not-
collect every month.
No, the
Of
billing,
course.
not for water.
We collect every single month because accounts are billed every month. They're billed quarterly, but each account is not billed on during the
Oh,
same month.
understand that, okay.
Right?
So,
Plus, it's a consistent process from year to year, so you would,
right.
that would be a wash. I think maybe to help us, I don't think, we don't, obviously don't need it for today, but to have a better understanding is to figure out, did we just do a very good job at the end of 2011, 2012 to close out year-end accounts, and that we're running the business a little bit better than we had, and if that's the case,
Yep.
that's just good to know.
Yep.
We can do that.
I think, Rob, did you have your hand up?
No, I was going to ask previously about the reimbursement from FEMA.
Okay,
And,
so we got that.
I mean, the only thing is, would it be possible then to take the money from municipal surplus and move it back to the electric utility surplus just to square the accounts, or is that not what we do? We can't do that.
Ben?
Actually, I have a question, excuse me, for Councilwoman Tsukamoto. Given your interest in making sure that people understand how the money's being used, you alluded to the legal expenses and GDR. In this particular case, we had a storm that supposedly is these 1-in-100-year storms.
Yeah. Hopefully, we're never going to get another one
But
of those.
we had it for
Yep.
2 years in a row.
Right.
It was 100th year and the first of the next 100.
Yeah, although, yeah, something
Second one
like
was that one.
that. Just the
Right,
tail
yeah,
end,
so
yeah,
77.
maybe so.
It was less.
But some thought has been given to having an account that has money in it specifically for that purpose. And I just, I wonder if you'd be supportive of that.
Well, like Robert said, there is doing our discussion with the utility committee, we did talk about that there is an account, I think Jim talked about that as well, called contingency account here, right? Which we have money for some of these expense, right? I forgot what the number is, but we do have an existing contingency account.
Oh, the goal is to create one. The goal is to look to create one this year.
Right?
Okay,
Well,
so-
there is one, I forgot, well, we did have one in which I looked at, so there is a way to do that. I think the purpose of that I'm interested in is because for better tracking. Right? For example, we incur all the expenses for the GVR project, and we want to be able to get reimbursed for every penny of it later on. And setting up something differently will give us a better way of tracking all the, Ben, the reason I think it's very simple. It's just for better tracking. So, but when the time that we get reimbursement, we don't want to miss any penny of it.
No, I understand.
I don't
Just-
think that, what I'm saying is to change the bottom line of the budget. It does not really impact the budget.
Not at
It does
all.
not impact the dollars, but it's just probably better accountability.
Yeah, I was just interested, because obviously the amount of money we're talking about in this electric line is very significant, given
Right.
the money you had expressed earlier.
Right.
Some concern about how it was booked.
Right.
So
See,
I-
for emergency purpose, it's something that unexpected. Totally okay with it, the way that we operate now.
Yeah.
All right, we've been operating that for many years, and luckily we have the cushion in the electric
it's
account,
very
which is a great thing. Now, for other things that we can anticipate, like the GVR project, I think that's something that we can set aside and to do better tracking, that's all.
If I'm not
And-
mistaken, we also took money from open space to hire a consultant on GVR at the end of 2011. And, you know, if we had this one account where we could take everything,
Yeah.
you know, we could just identify it and
I think that was a small amount, but yeah, I think we
still,
did, so.
money is, you know, it's public
Right,
money.
is that correct, Jim? I think there was a small amount
I didn't hear a
for a
question on
consultant for GVR.
Yeah,
Right.
and just so
Your
the
question.
public understands, what Jeannie is pointing out is making sure in a snapshot point, in a budget, we can track them, but rest assured, we know exactly what we spent for GVR, and we know that exactly what the bill will be at the end.
That's right, so we
have a
can
good
get it
handle on
back.
that. I don't want anyone to get misunderstanding on that. And we can get to more questions. Robert, if we've got more to cover, we just want to get both Michael and David up here to handle the...
I'm sorry, just say that. I don't,
If you've got more to cover...
no, I do not.
Okay, then we'll get Michael and David up here to cover the field operations for the electric and water. Come on up. And obviously, for any questions, though these electric and water were listed separately on the agenda, the public questions will take at both those together. So,
Good morning.
good morning, Michael. Thank you for coming.
As you all are aware, we own and operate a fully functioning electric distribution system, which originates with something I think everyone's become all too familiar with, our two main feeder lines from Jersey Central. Those are 34,000 volt feeder lines that come in to our substation at Kings Road. From there, it's transformed down to 12,000 volts and distributed throughout Madison on the eastern side of town. From there, there's also two 34,000 volt lines that go underground to our James Park substation. From there, it's stepped down to 12,000 volts and distributed to the western end of Madison. We service approximately 6,500 customers. We maintain all the overhead cables and underground cables, all the manholes, transformer bolts, and all the equipment contained therein. We have approximately 2,400 utility poles, over 1,650 transformers. We install and test all of our revenue meters. We maintain traffic lights as needed. We respond to all the calls for no power, partial power, down power lines, storm restoration, car pole accidents, securing and removing of the traffic lamps involving accidents, and any trees or limbs that are where wires are involved. We perform line clearance on an as-needed basis, but essentially the entire line clearance is contracted out on a 2-year basis. We perform mark-out requests, which are anytime there's excavation going to take place, we need to locate our underground facilities. We cut and install the Christmas tree and decorate the Christmas tree in Waverly. we decorate the wreaths and install the wreaths. We didn't do that this year, though, because we had a little setback with, her name was Sandy. We do some out-of-the-norm lighting requests, such as the new lights that have been installed underneath the walkway trestles, when we have the ability to work that into our work schedule. The department consists of myself, the superintendent, 1 line foreman, 2 chief linemen, and 5 linemen. The benefits of owning and operating our electric utility is our ability to address problems on a relatively quick time span. We are within minutes during the day of addressing any issues that may occur. After hours, we're within 45 minutes to an hour of getting a crew out to respond to any problems. Most of our men live either in Madison or close to Madison. And we observe our system on a day-to-day basis. So when we see a problem, we either address it or we put it on a list for any future repairs. I personally live here. I consider myself a stakeholder in this utility. And my goal has been and will continue to be to keep this system as safe and reliable as possible and to provide a great service to our customers. I will continue to explore and purchase any type of new materials and equipment that will make my men, my workers work easier and safer, and provide them with any safety equipment that they need. Our normal ongoing work is basically installation of new services, commercial and residential, street light repairs. Currently, we are in the process of the mid-year of a 3-year maintenance contract on our substations, and we will be taking transformers and switchgear out of service for testing. And that testing is in progress as we speak. We are continuing to install poles and make permanent repairs to the distribution system from Hurricane Sandy. One of the things we've noticed is that when we do go out to do some permanent repairs, there's some adjacent poles that need to be replaced, and we're going to upgrade those portions of the system as we go along. I am currently waiting for shop drawings on the underground switches that we appropriated money for last year. That'll be up along the underground system along the Rexon Corp. And when those drawings are approved, the switches will begin to be manufactured. And once we take delivery of those, we're going to start replacing those underground switches. Last year's major projects were a primary service to the rheology site at 175 Park Avenue, the Walgreens building, the new condos at Cook Avenue, and St. Vincent's School, and obviously Hurricane Sandy restoration.
I'll call down the liaison first to make comments. I just want to throw in, I think prior to 2 years ago, electric utility was taken for granted by all our residents. I think now they have an even greater appreciation. So I want to thank you and your crew for everything post-Sandy, not only within our 4 square miles, but going to neighboring communities and helping them get back on board. Jeannie, comments on as liaison, and then other.
Yeah, thank you. Mike, just want to take the opportunity to thank you and your department, not only for operating the electric utility, but also for maintaining and protecting. This is a great asset that we have in town. Just want to point out that, looking at the summary of the budget, I think we all realize that, our taxpayers only pay for approximately 53% of what we spend every year. So without the electric utility, the taxpayers will have to pay a lot more. So we appreciate what you do, and keep up the good work, and we'll do whatever to support you.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the council? And just in case it didn't, this budget is down from last year. So. All right. Call David up on water field.
Thank you.
And just for, I think after we get through the comments on utilities, we will take a 5-minute stretch leg and restroom break, and then get into capital.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. This is the Water Department operating budget I hold. I maintain in that. In our staff, we only have 3 men in the Water Department. Our men, the 3 men maintain at least 50 miles of water main. They also maintain 5 wells with 2 treatment plants for the borough. And then 2 holding tanks too, which is one is at Madison Avenue and the other one's at Midwood Terrace. Then we also have, they maintain all the curb boxes and meters in all the residents, average about 6,000 services and meters. They also maintain all our water concession stands, water fountains for the parks, for recreation, and then they also do help out on doing work in the bathrooms or that, so we don't have to hire a plumber. It's all done in-house. We try to do everything in-house so we don't have to get a contractor in, but sometimes I do have to call them in. And then the sprinkler systems they maintain too with this too, because we've got about 12 sprinkler systems around through the whole borough for irrigation and that. Then on a bi-weekly basis, we have 2 licensed water operators in the borough. We have for this, which is state required. And they have to take care of water samples every 2 weeks. They vary each week, every 2 weeks, what we have to test for. And that could be for iron, zinc, magnesium, whatever when they go to take the samples, they'll pick up the bottles, and then they will do the samples in 2 weeks and take them back to the lab. And you have to hand deliver them to the lab. That's what we do there in our water department. Then now, in regards to gallons of water pumped during a normal basis for this time of the year, we pump about 1,700,000 gallons every day. And then during the summer, when it starts getting hot, we start pumping 3 million plus. And then when we see it get that high there, that's when we start putting out notices to conserve on water. And that's what we watch for that there. Okay? We do store at least 1,250,000 gallons of water at all times in the tanks, between the 2 tanks that we have. That's what we do store there. Then a lot of times the men do work very close with Bob in regards to replacement of water mains. Whenever there's a water main project going on, Bob will have the engineers going over, and then the guys also look over too, to see for changing valves or directing the water main for different reasons. Then also too, last year we Bob took a capital ordinance out to do some ongoing projects in the water department. Right now in the water department, we are working on a SCADA system from Midwood Terrace to the water plant. We're going to wireless because copper wires are getting obsolete and they're all worn out. So that's why we're going to wireless right now. We're in the midst of doing that right now. Then we're also replacing some clay valves at well D and well E that are outdated and have to be replaced. Then there also is being work done at the air stripper. They put an air stripper in, I guess maybe about 10 years ago, and some repairs have to start getting done over there on the that's at the treatment plant. That's what has to be done there. Then all the chlorine alarms for wells A, E, D, and C are being upgraded right now as we speak. This is all part of the capital ordinance money that was appropriated last October. All right, and then also there's a level indicators that all the wells had to be done, and they're already repaired. And then the water department, well, that's all in-house work. If we ever have a problem here in Madison, within an hour's time, we have somebody out there looking at the problem and getting it repaired right then and there. That's what we get. That's what our water department does.
Jeannie, liaison.
I think the water department is probably one of the departments that all of us take them for granted. Again, want to make the same point as the electric utility. Right? Residents will be paying a lot more if we don't have the revenue that we can generate from the water utility as well. Even though not as much as electric, but we're generating revenue to supplement the budget. And I want to take this opportunity to thank you and your staff for doing the good services, providing good quality water for all the residents, and also do additional work, as you mentioned, to protect this asset that we have. Thank you.
Rob?
Thank you. I had the wonderful opportunity last year to accompany David, and we did a tour of not only a lot of our sewer pump stations, but some of the water infrastructure as well. And when you actually look at it, you realize the enormity of the infrastructure that we are maintaining. Now, if I look back at the history of water rate increases in town, I know we didn't have one for many years. Then we had a 20% increase, and now we're back to nothing. If I just look at the level of surplus between the water utility and the electric utility, and the reduced price going forward for electricity, I just wonder if perhaps it's appropriate to, instead of, as it pertains to water rate increases, instead of waiting for X number of years, then having a big sort of quantum spike, step function, you know, in rise in water rates, if maybe from time to time we do a small 0.5% or 1% increase, just so that we can keep up with the ongoing wear and tear on our infrastructure, while at the same time supplementing that to the taxpayer by a corresponding reduction in the electric utility rate. I don't think it's going to be anything crazy, but I would hate to be in the situation where we have where we get behind because of budget constraints on the water side, and then, we have to do something dramatic. So I would just ask that prior to the introduction of the budget on the 11th, that we review this to see if there's any room at all to increase the water rates, which would be offset by a reduction in the electric rate. Thank you.
So Jim, you've got that as a to-do. We can work and come up with rate review and the impact of increase in water with a potential decrease in electric. It's pretty much a standalone from the budget.
I'm not saying we're going to change the overall. It's just that, if I'm not mistaken, we had a period of maybe 15 or 20 years, or maybe 10 or 15 years where we had no water rate increase, and then we popped it up a lot. Now, half of that went to cover the water meter replacement. But, I mean, please, everyone, if you get a chance, go with David and, take a look at what we maintain. And, it's just magnificent in its immensity that it's maintained so well by such a dedicated staff. And then contemplate what would happen if for some reason it failed. So that's all I'm saying. And I'm a big believer in preventative maintenance. And I think that the water utility, while properly maintained, a little bit more never hurts for something so important as water. Thank you.
Ben?
Yeah, excuse me. I very much agree with the general thrust of Rob's comments. What I would like to see happen, and it won't happen, unfortunately, between now and the 11th, but we have discussed it, is to have a multi-year plan for our utilities and a lot of our capital improvements, not just a year or 2 years, but to look out, and we can predict with a fair amount of confidence when there'll be failures in certain systems, because they all have, well-documented average lives. And then we could, once we know that, then it would be, we'd know how much we need to set aside. So, for example, the water meter project, putting aside $200,000 a year. I'm a great proponent of that. Certainly we should look at it. My only concern is and if we could do it incrementally this year, why not? I think over time what we need to do is have a more precise understanding of how much money we may well need in given years and how we're allocating current funds toward that eventuality. Thank you.
So our to-do items right here are long range for both electric and water as far as capital reinvestment, a review of the rate structure. Basically, half the council that's sitting here right now, since we haven't adjusted rates in a few years, have not been part of that discussion. So having minimally, we can get the history of, for the last 10 years at least, out to the council members, and so we can get that discussion going. Jeannie?
I think that's good. in our committee meeting for the utilities, we specifically, when we review the capital proposal for this year, we specifically sat down with David and Michael to talk about not only that we need to look at the stuff we need for this year, but we need to look at long range, one, to protect our asset, major asset, and also to improve our ability to handle emergencies. So we need to cover both of those areas, and this will be a great exercise for us to go one step further.
Any other questions or comments from the council? Thank you, David.
Okay.
Right. We'll now open it to the public for any questions on utility. Those are the administration of both water and electric and the field operations, both water and electric. Please step up to the lectern, state your name, your address, and ask your questions, and remember that you are standing between us and a bathroom break. No, I'm only kidding. Well, we'll give you your due amount of time. Sorry. Tom?
I hate to bring this back up, but I can honestly say I was confused on the FEMA discussion in terms of maybe a simple question. If I understood, Robert, the revenue that we collect from FEMA goes directly to surplus.
That's correct.
So how much did we collect for Irene, and how much is reflected in the surplus?
I believe 414,000.
So that was a direct credit to surplus. In my old accounting days, that used to be called the dirty surplus theory. You never saw what went in and what went out. You just were hiding it from the regular operating accounts. You never saw a full accounting of what was there. And the money that, you don't see it through the operating.
I'll comment on it, Robert.
Jim will, go ahead.
After bid.
Okay, if you want, Tom, if you've got some other questions, then we'll what we tried to do last time around is get the questions out, we'll keep track, and we'll answer them all.
Okay.
So yep, go ahead and get at it.
So that was just trying to understand where the costs are and where the revenue is.
Yep.
The other point I guess I'd like to make, it's more of a prospective one. I know a number of people in Madison are receiving all kinds of mailings from the alternative energy suppliers, which in the electric we don't qualify for. So the other ones you can be interested in are the gas. I hear a lot of discussion about the reduced rates for our, our product supply coming in 2014. But what is going to be the impact on the rates that are going to be billed to the actual consumer? I get the impression that everybody assumes it's going to drop to the bottom line. We're going to keep, so I just don't understand, the plan that's in place there. So I think it's something that really has to, be understood.
I think that's another one for Jim to handle. Thank you. Okay,
Yeah,
so we have the FEMA and the
sure.
electric rate.
The electric rate, I'll just say that's obviously a discussion for council for the future. In folding into that, it's important to note, and we talked before about the appropriation side, how you have to be cautious on the appropriation side and have $60,000 for salt, even though David may only use $5,000 or $10,000 in a particular year, or have $15 million for power purchase when we may only need $14 million. We have to be cautious on that side. We have to be ultra cautious on the revenue side as well. This is state statute driven financing that we do, and we can't anticipate the money from FEMA coming in. It's just not prudent for us to say we're definitely going to get that money, because we're dealing, with the U.S. government, we're dealing with challenging times, and it's not appropriate for us to say, okay, Bob Lanigan sent in a great application. We think we're going to get $600,000 in, therefore we're going to add that and reflect that. So it's just appropriate for us, and this is the same as some of the health department revenues, it's appropriate for us to not anticipate that, not show that, and ultimately it goes to the miscellaneous revenue, and ultimately it shows up in the surplus balances. So it's not like it's hidden, it just shows up in a different way. But to account for it or anticipate it, it's just not something that municipalities can do and should do.
And just another follow-up on the electric, as we've just had the discussion, we will start taking a look at all the rates. But the electric rate is not just based on what it takes for us to maintain the facilities, and not just what we pay for the power, but we're also paying to get from the power from point A to point B, and that is a big chunk, and that is a less predictable one, and one that is not going down, so. Bob? And then we'll...
Just one more to Jim's point. It was announced in the news this morning that the sequester, or whatever the latest event that occurred after the Cliff, the sequester, FEMA reimbursements are going to be impacted in this area. So, I mean, I'm going down to the county next week, but to Jim's point, there's no guarantee that we're going to get back that money this year or next year. It's going to be a longer process because the government now is, I guess, deadlocked.
Yeah, I think they announced that a certain percentage of it's going to be withheld, so right now you may never see that money, but it'll be some fraction. Pat Rowe, 25 Pine Ave, Madison, New Jersey. Yes, start your clock. I'm very glad to hear that we're going to finally look forward with all these different issues on a sort of a multi-year basis, because as I said to you guys last fall during the town hall meeting and my letter to the editor, I think a lot of this stuff can have some very big positive impacts, but we have to sort of lay it all out and sort of understand where the rates for the electric utility are going to go, what that's going to do to the bottom line for the electric utility. Some of the things like what kind of money do we need to set aside? Right now, I think you've got about $15 million or so in reserve between all the different surplus accounts and the reserves. I sort of totaled up. So it'd be interesting to understand which of those could be utilized for an emergency and which ones can't. Because one of the things, I look at your surplus right now is about $12 million in all your accounts, plus you've got another $2 million in reserve accounts. Anyway, I look forward to participating in those conversations. A couple questions about the electric utility. I know Robert seemed to be a bit surprised about some of the receivables, especially on the water utility. Do you guys actually track how much you bill in a given period versus how much you bring in? Because it seems to me like without keeping track of what's coming in as a regular receivable versus what's delinquent, it's kind of hard to tell why these things jump around. But I think if you took a more detailed look at the money coming through the door, you'd have a better understanding of that. That's the same thing for the electric utility. When you look at the variations, I know the utility companies keep track of degree days, so they can see from year to year how the usage tracks against what they anticipate versus on the actual weather. Let me talk about that. The other thing is, when it comes to the surplus accounts, whether it's the borough or the various utilities, as part of the conversation, it would also be good to understand what your goals are in each surplus account, where you would like to keep it from year to year. In other words, you don't want it to grow too big, you don't want it to go too small. In the past several years, we've seen it coming down. Now we're seeing it go back up again. You don't want it to go to infinity because that's taxpayer money that you're holding on to, that you don't really need. There's obviously, when we get to the capital budget portion of this meeting, there's going to be a lot of capital projects that are going to get put on hold or on the multi-year plan that possibly could be advanced depending on how you view some of these things. Especially when you look at the electric utility, since you can probably expect to see more money coming in the next couple of years than you currently have, you may want to consider drawing the account down a little bit further this year than you normally would if there are some serious projects that you're going to be putting on hold, because I think right now you're only looking at moving about $1 million over. So I think having that conversation before the budget's settled would be useful, even though I know it's kind of a challenge at this point, given that you have, I guess, 2 weeks to do this?
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pat. So before, just a quick review. Having a good handle on available reserves, what you were saying. I think the basic idea is understanding on our receivables, basically a cash versus accrual basis, so we know what we're billing versus collecting, and then a actual concrete goal around reserves.
Oh, and the final pitch I'll make, and I keep making this pitch, we should really treat the utility companies like they're a corporation, and we should have a financial statement as stakeholders, as users, as owners of them, because when you try to go through these statements and see, the expenses are over here, the revenues are over here, it doesn't come together. But that business is as big as the whole borough government. It's $25 million. Your whole budget's $25 million. That's a serious operation that we should really get a better view of from year to year. How is it doing? How healthy is it?
So a suggestion there is a annual report of some sort. Ben?
I might be able to shed a little light on the question regarding our surplus. I had the same question when I got involved in the process, which is how much is enough and what is the right number? Not surprisingly, you can't get a definitive answer to that question from any source I could find. However, you can get guidelines, and in most of municipal finance, that's what you deal with. You deal with guidelines. Based on the statistical studies I could find, of which there were several, we were below what would be considered a prudent number last year. The year before last, 2011, we've now moved into the territory of what one might consider to be prudent to perhaps even a touch conservative, although that's debatable. What colors this whole discussion, of course, is the S&P putting us on negative watch, and we know that come mid-year we'll be in the market. So we have to, if anything, I would argue that we'd have to be a touch conservative this year, but we're not talking about millions of dollars out of line. Given what as I say, given what I've been able to find, and it's limited, and it's mainly statistical, but we are at 12+ million, more or less in the right number. And it's interesting to note as well that municipalities around the country that have their own electric departments, I assume you like this part, tend to be a little lower, and acceptably so, right? Because they obviously have this other business or source of surplus. So I hope that helps. I wish I could tell you it's X%. I was looking for that, and I certainly couldn't find it. If anyone else in the audience or listening in knows of some reference, by all means call me up. I'd very much appreciate it.
So it sounds like, bottom line, a lot of factors that we have to take in there. Jim?
A couple things. We're continuing to expand the tracking and analysis on the water electric consumption. So we are heading down that road of doing that more. I'm super conservative, so Ben and I will continue to always have debates on how much surplus is appropriate. I have a 1944 annual report here from the Borough of Madison that shows a reserve for uncollected tax that's equal to almost 50% of the appropriations. Our reserve for uncollected tax is equal to 2.6% right now. And that was obviously coming off the Depression and coming off at times when it was very difficult to get a tax collection rate like what we have right now. But in terms of the electric utility, you only have to look at our friends that own their own municipal electric utility in Seaside and how many months they were without being able to bill their customers because their system was crippled by the hurricane. So there are situations that can happen, whether it's a depression or an economic situation or a weather event or something else that can really cripple the revenue of the borough. So we'll continue to work accordingly. Ben and I have had many discussions on where to peg the reserves, and we'll continue to do so.
Anyone else wishing to be heard? All right, we will take a little break. It's 10:33, so we'll reconvene at 10:40.